I think a lot of what we're selling in many cases is like the end product in many cases, but it's also a peace of mind.
Yes.
Right. It's a peace of mind when we can show up and we have the full plan laid out and a client can see it and they're like literally, oh, CT is doing this. I don't have to worry about it. How many times have we gotten that compliment? Like that's really a compliment when a client says to you, if I know y'all are at the table and y'all are running the thing, I don't have to worry about it.
Shooters Only Club. Oh, I'm loving the.
Oh, this is the official.
Here. This is the this is all the new shirts.
Yeah.
With the exception of the actual carpet thread, the other one. There's two other ones.
Those are old.
I love the white one.
The white one. Oh,
the white one is so
yeah.
What was it? I forget it. It was.
I don't know, but it's upside down.
Yeah.
Like the logo.
Oh yeah, it says no. It says content create. No.
Content creative something.
We should know this. I should know this out of anyone.
Yeah, you made, or did you make them?
Andrew
This
made
is
them.
where we find out.
No, it wasn't that.
Creators create?
No.
Create.
But we had the white shirts that we wore in Miami.
Yeah.
Love that one.
It was
creative something. I just wore it the other day too.
Yeah.
Oh, that's going to really bother me now. I'm looking for like pictures of this. Anyway, we'll figure it out. Welcome to another episode of the Heavy on Brand podcast, where we're talking about all things marketing, creative, branding, all the good stuff. And we got the crew back on the couch. I think the topic today is what?
We have
Put Morgan on the spot.
Marketing ops magic.
Yeah, marketing ops magic.
Streamlining while staying creative. Efficiency.
We'll definitely change that title a little bit later, but that just gives us the topic of discussion today. But yeah, I think, and I'll let you do your thing, Mo, but when it comes to being an agency and creating content or just doing marketing, I think sometimes you underestimate how much of a process it is, because I think a lot of clients and a lot of people just get so married to the end product or the thing and like, oh, that's dope or that's beautiful or whatever it may be. But man, it's a lot that goes into that process. And I know a lot of us are very much so in sync on what that looks like, because we've built out the process. We've crashed a couple of times. We have gotten better. We've had to have tough conversations around, all right, this is the same thing that we keep running into. But Morgan, I'll just kind of start with you. You were very detail oriented when it comes to like marketing and the content management of things.
Should I put a CT shirt on since you guys are all wearing CT shirts?
It's like continuity.
Continuity. Just. You're right.
Man, I was watching this one podcast with the Nelk boys, and like they're switching camera angles, and then he just ended up with a pizza, and then one of the guys was like, "Where did you get a pizza?" It's so random.
Yeah. V, what's in your green juice again? What is that? You drink that every day? Yeah.
And is it for energy? Is it for skin? What's it for? And is it tasty? Okay.
Yeah, you know the answer.
An acquired taste. Yeah.
You got to share what that is. You have to share what that is. Yeah. Yeah. Good.
I think we're good.
Actually, really quick before we get back into it, marketing ops. Who's the sorry, no, I'm just curious. For the audience listening, who would be interested in this topic?
What do you mean?
I'm just curious because I want to curate some of the answers specifically to like who we think would be interested in listening to this.
I mean, I think any company or brand that's marching down the path of like creating content and getting their message out there and trying to build like an actual marketing function.
Perfect.
So that's any company, in my opinion. That's an agency, that's an e-commerce brand, that's a nonprofit. Like if you're trying to get your message out there, then a lot of what we've worked on in the beginning is your marketing infrastructure. Because without that, you can't really do anything else. Like you got to know how to catalog information, content, things need to correspond to a schedule. You need to build out a repository of things. You need to make sure editing teams are synced up. You need to make sure marketing is synced up. It's more of a process around communication and sharing of information than anything else before you could really even get to like the end product of whatever that thing is.
Mm-hmm.
Now, let me ask you this. How difficult, sorry, I totally hijacked this. How difficult was this, like the strategy and like working with companies prior to having structures? Because I don't know about you guys, like you don't know what you don't know. And I remember when I was working and like obviously starting the business, I had no idea what I was doing. And I just didn't have any structures, and that's why it felt so hard. But now working with CT, the simplicity that comes with working in a team is like so apparent. Like she's like right in front of the door now. She's rocking that blue bandana though.
Nah.
Yeah.
I wonder if she can even see in here.
No, I don't.
Yeah. I mean, you got
Can
to
you see it?
Yeah.
I actually can't.
You could see. I have a response to that.
Yeah.
So you'll know how to cut it.
Do you want me to go say something?
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Yeah.
It's like it got loud. It literally got louder. Like
That has
the
to be the
knots.
strongest blower
Mhm.
Yeah.
I've ever heard.
Okay, I think we're
See,
good.
Justin.
HR. I don't know.
HR violation waiting to happen.
Another HR violation. Justin.
Oh, you can't
Your face
come
said
for,
it.
you can't cover me for my thoughts.
But no, that's a really good question, Justin. I think one of the things that we did once we started to bring on more and more clients, a lot of the conversations V and I were having were coming from more of a strategic standpoint. It's almost easier to work with a client who doesn't have anything set up or doesn't have any sort of infrastructure, as opposed to one who kind of has 4 or 5 different systems and then trying to make sense of the thing that they're utilizing to get out information. So I think, and Kelsey spoke on this earlier, a lot of how we build strategies with clients include like the research and the auditing of their marketing and their content, but it's also
Oh, she back.
There's no.
I swear she jumped over the house.
On a Tuesday morning too, eh?
Right. Yeah.
This is
crazy.
hilarious. This is great BTS.
I was gonna say, yeah.
It is. Try to have some grace. She has no idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, of what.
But this is also a great case study to show people like, podcasts don't have to be so like,
Yeah.
it's okay if things don't go your way. It's okay if there's distractions, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like whenever people think about doing podcasts, it has to be like this perfect production. Like,
No.
nothing can go wrong. Shift the mindset.
Yeah.
That's right.
I've been guilty of that for sure.
I feel like we
Absolutely.
all
We
have.
all have. Yeah.
yeah,
it puts a lot of
absolutely.
pressure on you.
Like,
Yeah.
I mean, for
Mhm.
anyone looking for marketing operations, I mean, I don't know if this, what did she say?
Oh, okay.
I see.
Now, you know Spanish?
Oh damn.
Poquito.
Yeah.
That's like saying gracias. Nah, I'm messing with you.
That's actually, I
Poquito.
was going to go into another conversation, but let's stick to marketing ops. You were saying?
What was I saying? A part of that process and building out a strategy on the front end is not only auditing their content and their marketing, but it's auditing like their system and the infrastructure behind what pushes out their narratives and their messaging. And so a lot of times we get dropped in the middle of a lot of stuff that we have to sift through. And I know we've all been a part of that process where it's just like, yo, what's happening? What's happening with this right now? But in many cases, it's just easier to start from scratch and say, hey, this is the playbook. This is the Bible right now. This is where you house your calendar. This is where you house content that needs to be reviewed and approved. This is how you house the stuff that's already been published. Like there's a whole system and a process that we take that we try to build out. So I'd be curious to know, with that, how that has either helped you all. Because I think once we kind of build out that baseline thing, then you all will come in and you will add your own touches to it so that it fits how you also do things.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because I feel like the systems and the structure has to also balance with like the free flowing creativity that you need to actually do the thing you do well. But they go hand in hand. So like, Brandy mentioned on a previous episode, like you have to change how you work in order to grow. But it's also hard if your brain, you do your best thinking in a certain way, or you come up with your best ideas, in this random sporadic like doc that nobody gets but you.
Right.
But it's also like, okay, now you have to figure out how to systemize that. And I don't know, I think it's interesting when you're working with companies and you're trying to help them when it's not even your brain, but you're trying to help other people figure out how to balance that. How have you dealt with balancing creativity and efficiency?
That's a great question. And sorry, what I really want to bring up is the structures that Valentina actually has made that has been very consistent. And what I can appreciate is one of our clients actually tried bringing in their way of doing things. And we all looked at it and we were just like, why would we do it that way? Like it actually just doesn't make sense, because the way we have it structured makes the most sense to everyone on the team. It's easily consumable. And obviously it took some work to get to where it is now, but being able to look at that, I don't even think it like disrupts any flow of creativity because of how efficient it is. So when we go back to the strategy and structures, we obviously didn't have this in place when we first started. It was we had to build to it. And the question that I asked you earlier, I wanted to know how hard it was in the beginning compared to now, because I want companies out there to understand you're not just bringing us on because we do great work. We're efficient with it. We have structures in place to make sure that what we're doing makes sense for not only you guys, but for us. The communication is clear. The deliverables are clear. The calendar is clear. We know who's going to be where at what time, and this is what they're doing. So like operations, like I would argue that strategy should be at the forefront of every single brands or businesses. Like I would not top funnel, but like mindset.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I think, and I'll be curious to get your thoughts on this, but I think a lot of what we're selling in many cases is like the end product in many cases, but it's also a peace of mind.
Yes.
Right. It's a peace of mind when we can show up and we have the full plan laid out and a client can see it and they're like literally, oh, CT is doing this. I don't have to worry about it. How many times have we gotten that compliment? Like that's really a compliment when a client says to you, if I know y'all are at the table and y'all are running the thing, I don't have to worry about it.
Yeah.
And that speaks to process, the professionalism, how we show up, the work that we put in on the front end, the work that we put in during day of or whatever that looks like. And then even like the post side of things, like they literally don't have to worry about it. Doesn't mean that they can't offer up feedback, but they don't have to worry about whether or not we're going to deliver what we said we're going to deliver. And that's just, it takes a while to get to that. And it's just iterating every time. I feel like we get better literally every time we do something. And because now we're like, oh, this is a new way of doing things. This actually worked a little bit better. This is a little bit more efficient. Now we don't have to rely on, not necessarily rely, but we don't have to put as much pressure on Francisco or on your team or whatever it may be. So I think it's just constantly being open to like changing and moving the process around a bit to fit where you are. And the more simplified we can make it, the easier it is for us to scale that, because we've had a few situations where, and I think we talked about this out in Cali, where we've had to be at 3 different places at once.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And you can't do that if you don't have a process and that infrastructure kind of set up. And the more you can templatize that, the easier that becomes. And then now it's just augmenting people, and they show up and it's like, oh, I know exactly what I need to shoot. I know exactly what I need to deploy. And then that's just kind of the thing, you know? So.
Yeah. You said you wanted Brandy's opinion on something.
I did say that.
It's okay. It was you guys, I remember.
Yeah.
I remember.
I just got to rambling. Sorry.
No, you're good.
I feel like I was in the zone a little bit.
Yeah. So typically when I meet a potential client, I find that it's usually at a point in their business where they kind of have come to the realization that they have everything everywhere in terms of like their content, their document, everything. You know, as an entrepreneur, sometimes you get like caught up and you get so busy, you just kind of only you know where everything is and no one else. So when it comes to organizing all of that, I know that earlier you had asked if, you know, I guess we kind of thrive if there is no structure in place, because then we can go in and kind of put our take on it. And I do whenever I'm working with a client and they don't necessarily have a plan, and they're kind of like in that, like, I guess that place of frustration. A lot of people don't realize, but there is some beauty in that, because that means that you're like open to allowing the experts to kind of weigh in and do what they do best. One thing that I like working with CT is that in terms of the client feedback that we've gotten, kind of like to your point, it's been that they can just trust us with our vision and with our, you know, a lot of entrepreneurs out there are looking for direction. Just tell me what to do. I hear that all the time.
Yeah.
Just tell me what I need to do in order to, you know, get to the next level. And I feel like CT's good at that with the clients that we currently have.
Yeah.
I was also going to say, when you talked about, you know, you feel like we get better every time. This is slightly veering off, but going back to team culture, we tend to have group meetings after each gig that we do, or each, you know, event or whatever, to talk about like what went right, what went wrong, what we like, what came up that we maybe weren't expecting, and like, okay, how did we rectify it? What can we do to get ahead of that next time? And I think that helps keep us moving forward and bettering us like every time with our systems and just flowing as well.
See, I really like that you brought that up, because when we were in Miami doing, am I allowed to
Just say
names?
Miami.
Cool. But you guys know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
When we were in Miami doing that one shoot and Steven came, like the GM of Rico's Productions, he gave you your flowers. He's like, man, I'm so astonished by Brian. He was just like, the way he brings everyone together at the end of the day to make sure that like everyone is okay, they knew what they were doing, and even ask, like, not micromanaging. And he was just like, man, Brian trusts you guys so much, and you guys trust Brian so much. And that's, I kind of lost my train of thought there. But being able to Brandy's point, have the clients trust us, have us trust you, and you trust us, it just kind of makes everything go so smoothly. Right?
Yeah. And truth be told, when it comes to like doing a debrief, that was B's biggest thing. I feel like she implemented that. It doesn't matter what time of day. Like, we could finish up something at 1 a.m. It's just like, all right, team, we need to debrief. And initially, I always got it, but I think you don't understand how important that is for you to be able to download what happened throughout the day immediately, as opposed to like going off and sleeping on it and then coming back the next day and you're on to the next thing. And it's like, oh, well, there was actually something that we should have communicated either amongst a team or back to a client to help prep and manage expectations for the next day. So I think once we really start to do that consistently, I noticed that how we even show up, just even the following day, it takes that pressure, because I look at a lot of what we do, whether it's managing a client relationship over a 12-month period or managing an activation or an event. It all feels like the Super Bowl for me, and I'm competing in it. And I feel like we all kind of take it on in the same way, where it's just like, all right, it's game day, and so you feel, some excitement, some angst to some degree because you just want to perform and you just want to get in the flow of doing things. But every time you do one of those, you have to have your halftime and say, all right, what are we doing right? What are we doing wrong? And then you have to watch the tape. You have to watch film. And that's what our debrief serves as. It's like, all right, this is what we need to do tomorrow. Or actually, we can leave this off because does it make sense? Because we're reading the room that's not needed right now. So I think that magic that happens behind the scenes is something that a lot of clients just don't necessarily understand or see, but it shows up later on in like the results and the performance and how we do things.
Going off of like things that clients don't always like understand or see, I'm curious, especially because I feel like I'm on the client side when we're on site, but you're more on the client side for the actual like, what do they want and how are we going to do what they want? And when it comes to like level setting with people about their expectations, when it's going back to the balance of systems and efficiency versus creativity of like, you want this, but you want it done by here. If we're being honest, like if we want to do this and we want to do it well, it's not going to be at this time. Here's a creative solution maybe for an in-between. But I guess how do you level set with clients in that sense? And is it advised to maybe like change timeline sometimes or like expand like the length or how am I saying this? How do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. It's like, okay. How do you manage the expectations with them? Because sometimes we've seen so many different things with various clients in various industries and various situations. Sometimes we will see something kind of play out before a client actually will. And I think as agency partners, we owe it to them to deliver a tough message, even though we may understand that it may be something that they don't want to hear. But one thing that I think we're really, really good about and that we've gotten better about is just not being order takers. Because sometimes when you're in that client agency dynamic, it can be really easy to fall into just, well, the client says that they want this, so we just got to do it. And you may be behind the scenes thinking like, that doesn't make sense. And sometimes you still have to roll with it. But I think one of the things that really helps us is that we've had tough conversations in a respectful way, tough conversations with clients to say, we don't think you should do this right now because of X, Y, and Z. And I think you always have to follow up with the reason why, as opposed to just saying, no, we won't do it. And then they're looking at you like, why? And 9 times out of 10, we're providing them with the reasoning and the explanation that in certain cases makes sense. In most cases, it makes sense. And sometimes we've had clients where it's just, we agree to disagree. And that's okay. Like, it's not personal. It's like, hey, if you feel like you have a certain level of insight or contextual knowledge as to why this needs to be done this way, then we trust it. Like, we trust them just as much as they need to trust us. So I think that in many cases, just getting comfortable having those kind of relationships, because it is a partnership. Like, think of the last person you partnered with. It's just not that one person or you telling them this is all, like, these are all the things that we need to do. And there isn't any pushback. Like, is a give and take on both sides.
A conversation.
It's a conversation. It's a conversation. It really is. It has to be. It has to be, because it's too much at stake. There are too many moving parts. A lot of livelihoods are impacted by what we do. A lot of livelihoods are impacted by the decisions that our partners make on their side. So there's a lot that goes into that we, I think, just naturally just understand because we've been in those shoes and are in those shoes.
For transparency with the audience, and also kind of just level setting with all of us, how would you explain the marketing operations between the Carbon Thread Agency and the brands we work with? Like, what's the flow?
The flow. So we continue to refine it. Depending on the client, we do have touch points with them. One of the things that we really try and do to like limit the amount of meetings that we have is, we know we need to talk through strategies or whatnot, but a lot of times what we do is like at the end of each month, we kind of have an internal team strategy session, right? About each client. And we spend maybe an hour and a half, 2 hours on a call with everyone on the team. And then we're just going down the line of all the clients that we work with. And then we're saying, okay, we're reviewing performance from this month or all the things that we've done to date during that any given month. And then we're taking that information and we're tweaking it and we're trying to offer up a strategy for the upcoming month. And so that way we can at least have a conversation with the client going into September to say, hey, we did this in July and August, right? We're going to do this moving forward in September to kind of help prep for the thing that we know is coming down the pipe in January of 2025. Mm-hmm. And then we just kind of lay out that plan. Now, does it always happen that smoothly, that sequentially? No, because things happen, things change all the time. But one of the things that I've noticed has been extremely helpful for us is that we sync up on everything that needs to happen for a client each month and review what needs to be done. And then we share that information and then we just get into executing and making sure like all the systems that we need to have to support that are in play so that we don't drop the ball, because there's so many things that we're managing. So I know Brandy's been a part of that. Justin, you've been a part of that. Morgan, it's like, all right, we're all on the same page now that if a client has a conversation with any one of us one-on-one, we already know what the play is because we've talked about it, and there should be, alignment across the board as to what needs to be done. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Brandy, I'm curious, since you're kind of heavy on like the systems side, how do you decide? And I know some companies already have their systems, like Brian said, and you're kind of coming in to help organize them better. Mm-hmm. But how do you kind of differentiate or figure out what's going to work for like one brand and what's not going to work for another, and like pivoting mid operation?
Yeah. I think that, kind of to Brian's point, having those conversations with the client, a lot of people don't realize that even when you hire an expert, they may have a certain way of doing things that work for them. But there's always this like trial and error sort of period that you go through, because every experience is a new experience. Every project is a new project. So you have your template, you go about your template, you try to follow it as best as possible, but these surprises pop up, like we just experienced recording our podcast. So you kind of have to be flexible, and you have to, I would also say, think of all the options. Like, I'm really heavy on research. I'm Google's my friend.
Learned it out in the Uno game the other day.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, so I do a lot of research in terms of how is this system or process going to impact the client? What are the risks? What are the dependencies that are going to come up? Like all the possible ways that it could not work. And I think having a plan B with them, and then being able to present a plan B if something does break or if something isn't working the way that they expected it to. Yeah, there have been several times where I've had a client, we just have to like shift a little bit.
Yeah.
I have a quick follow-up question to that. But one sec. How do you know when it's time to take 2 steps back to take 1 step forward?
I love that question. Wow. So I currently have a client who actually doesn't have a marketing department right now, because finances, this one's not there. It's kind of a one-person show. And they're burning themselves into the ground, doing all the things. Kind of like I mentioned earlier, everything's everywhere. Mm-hmm. And I think that taking those 2 steps back, really being honest with yourself. And I try to have that relationship, with my clients. to have those like weekly checkpoints, and not only talking about like business strategy, but also like entrepreneurial mindset and tapping into where they are mentally. Because a lot of times, and we don't realize, we kind of block ourselves from potential greatness because we're so used to doing things a certain way. And we're like, this is my way. And, you know, I've been doing this for 15 years and I know the way it's supposed to happen, you know, when there's all these new technologies out. And I mean, like with AI and everything, I mean, the game has definitely changed. I feel like it changes every week, every month.
Yeah.
You know?
So to that point, I heard someone say the person, like, I mean, when you're starting a business and you get it from 0 to 1 million, everything that you've done to get to 1 million, you can't do to get to 1 million to like 10 million. Like something needs to shift from being an entrepreneur to being like a CEO.
Yeah.
And for the marketing aspect, people don't understand that like marketing is going to be a huge part of the first, like especially like branding. It's should be like one of the most important things you focus on. I mean, keep me honest here, marketing, sales, and what would you say like the third most important thing is for like brands to grow? Like marketing, sales, and
Ops,
probably.
Yeah.
Brian, has there ever been a time where you had to have that tough conversation? Because here's the thing, people don't understand that. They'll be like, okay, why would I take 2 steps back? It's just going backwards. Well, sorry, that's where I want to get to. It's if you don't take those 2 steps back, what you're doing right now is good, but it'll never get you to great. And we all know the enemy of good is great. So if you continue to like stay in your own way, not thinking that like you need help from others who have already done the thing to like push you forward to the next thing, then you're kind of just
a metaphor that I use with, you know, family, friends, and clients and stuff is, so I've been rock climbing for the last like 3 years. And in rock climbing, as you advance, sometimes there's, how do I explain this? Sometimes you're put in a position where you kind of have to pause, or you have to actually go down a few steps, pivot to then go back up another way. And that's actually the easier way. If you had gone the original route, you're going to exhaust all this energy and you're going to put all this effort for nothing, and you're going to be fried and not be able to make it to the top. So I think that's, I mean, in terms of business and everything, I think that's it's really good to have that mindset.
And in regards to strategy, imagine if you just brought someone into the company or into the brand that already knew the way you should go, but you went this way because you thought that this was the way to go.
Yeah.
And then we meet you halfway and we're like, yo, come back, let's go this way.
Yeah. But that's that creativity piece. That's
Exactly.
where, you know, that's the beauty of letting other people help you paint your vision. You know what I mean? I think there's definitely something to be said about that.
I'm curious to know if you've ever had those hard, because it's not an easy conversation to have. It's like seeing someone who has done something like, I mean, if we were talking to like a $1 million brand and they are stuck there, how do you then look at them and be like, hey, you're doing good. This, you guys have to pull back on this and then move forward this way. Wouldn't they look at you like, this is my limiting belief talking, but if I was the brand, I'd be like, what do you know? Like, we made ourselves to 1 million. Yeah, like we're kind of stuck, but we're still figuring it out.
I think that's the trust component you're talking about as well. Like when you're working with some of these clients for, you know, CT's been with some clients for like 3 years, like that you've built the relationship for them to know, like, you're not going to give them advice that, or strategy that you don't firmly believe in, that you don't firmly think will benefit them. So I think, I mean, I would imagine it would be the trust component.
Yeah. I think a lot of that is reinforced too by how like the way you show up for them, right? Because if you demonstrate, which I feel like we do a really good job of this, if you demonstrate that you actually care about their company, their brand, and the results, and it's more than just agency, client, partnership, or relationship, then they're going to be way more receptive to when you bring to them an issue or a problem or a tough conversation that you may know deep down, like, hey, this is not making a whole lot of sense, because you've built that muscle with them and they've seen it in action and in practice time and time again, that they don't even like question it. It's like, oh, okay, cool. Now, again, kind of to what we were saying earlier, they may not always agree with you and they may not always take your advice, but I think we owe it to ourselves and owe it to a client to let them know exactly what we're thinking and why, because you hired us for a reason. We are the experts, right? Doesn't mean that we know everything, but we've seen so many scenarios and situations to that we're not advising you from a place of just like theory. It's coming from a place of practice and us doing it over and over again.
I guess something to kind of wrap this up, just we touched on it last night about like habits. And I think with operations, that is, you build a habit of how you run something. How do you break that? Even in like your own personal businesses or CT as a whole, like, CT's definitely had to switch up as it has grown. I'm sure it's going to switch up more like as it continues to grow bigger. How do you break a habit or build new habits within yourself and then advise that to others?
I think some of that is I've been really trying to simplify stuff. I know my habit in certain instances can be to overcomplicate things because in many cases, that's just kind of how my mind works. But the more and more that we simplify things and the more and more we allow people to come in and just kind of do what not only that they're paid to do, but they're genuinely, an expert in doing those things, then those habits start to shift, right? Because that habit is not, at that point, not based solely on my thought process and my approach to things. It's how they view a situation and then they're implementing that. And then you got to trust it. It's all getting back to like the whole trust component. But it takes time. It takes time. Like you have to give people the flexibility to introduce like their own way of doing things. And you have to be comfortable with that. So that's what I would say for me.
Yeah. So there's a saying that people say often, which is if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't necessarily believe that to be true. Just because it's not broken doesn't mean, there can't be some sort of area of improvement in a process or anything like that. So I feel like sometimes life informs you, and experiences with clients kind of inform you in terms of pivots you need to make in operations. If you're doing something with the client and you notice this bump, this like fall, kind of like to readjust things. But in terms of the habits, I would say, yeah, just like keeping that entrepreneurial mindset and remembering that I feel like we're constantly in a pivot situation. As a contractor, as an entrepreneur, you're constantly like always looking at all of the options, or you should be at least always being open to everything. And so being in the habit of that and being open to it.
Like the phrase, what got you here won't get you there.
Right. Yeah. Like what Justin said.
And one thing I'll notice, and I'll shut up, but it's just important for me to say this because I think it is an unspoken superpower. Like we don't panic when things don't go right.
I'm sorry, we don't what?
Panic. Right? How many times have we been in situations and something didn't go necessarily according to plan? And
it's production.
Yeah, right. And it's just like, okay, we need to shift. I heard the word pivot. I heard the word adjust. Like not panicking is probably a huge, if not one of the most important components of it. Because when you're working with clients and they are leaning on you for leadership, guidance, and advice, and if they see you melt down, oh my goodness.
I will say, you're going to know what I'm talking about, the light situation.
The light situation?
Yeah.
No, but we're fine. But to your point, we don't panic.
Yeah.
We just figure it out.
What light situation?
Oh, we'll talk about it off camera, don't worry.
So, but this is like some advice someone gave me that I didn't take that day. And someone told me that to let people be, and it's something we've all touched on actually, to let people be the experts in their area. I don't work in camera. I don't work with lights on like a high level often. So Justin does. Like instead of me coming up in my head with what is possible, why not ask somebody else and see the person that does it often and see what they think before making like decisions in your head or like conclusions in your head. And I thought it was really good advice. And then I learned it in action, on that day.
I'm really glad you reached out though. Like,
and then we fixed it and it was totally fine. But I would have saved myself like 20 minutes of internal panic had I just immediately asked Justin. And that was like a learning lesson. That day. But
I would say to break bad habits, I don't know if this is going to even toxic to say, but like to break bad habits, you kind of have to let it break you. So in regards to the lessons that I've learned from failing, like in the beginning of like every business, you think you know what you're doing. And when it doesn't like go your way or not the way you intended it to, you're like, damn. But you can either like kind of dwell in it or pick yourself back up and realize, okay, on to the next thing.
Mm-hmm.
So the bad habits that I had was not like I had zero structure. And like this is the one thing I love being able to pick up from like CT Valentina specifically. Being able to like get these structures in place. I mean, obviously all of you, I've been able to take that and like incorporate into like the business and operation I have in Toronto. And it's just made my life so much easier. And it's been able to fast track like just me and my team. And on top of that, bringing all of my skill sets to the team for CT and like all the clients that we service. So it's just, I let myself learn the lessons. And you know what's funny? I came across this quote. It's just like, there's the benefit of losing is the lessons that you learn from it. And I was like, oh, so I feel like to break old habits, you just got to embrace the failure. I'm not saying like I failed by any means, but because I strongly believe you fail when you give up.
Right.
And we're not out here giving up.
No.
Like
It's
even
part
if
of
we
the
found
process.
our,
It's part of the process.
it's a part of the process. I feel like if we, I mean, you're going to tell this story another time, but if we ever found ourselves at ground zero, we'd be able to pick ourselves back up to exactly where we are in a much, much faster timeline.
100%. 100%.
I agree. For me with habits, it's just I have to pay a lot of attention and be very aware and do it for probably like a couple months and then it's a new thing. But it's for me, it's like it has to be like when you're aware of it, when you're actively thinking of something. Conscious. It has to be a very conscious effort for me to break habits in like new operations.
Nice.
And that was marketing ops.
That was marketing.
We did it.
We did it. Again, we appreciate everyone joining us for another episode of the Heavy on Brand podcast. As usual, I'm biased with what I'm about to say, but I feel like we have the best in the business in the respective areas, and we're just going to continue to rock out and provide information. Hopefully people find some value out of it. I'm sure you will. But until next time, you know where to find us. Website is thecarbonthread.com. Find us on IG at The Carbon Thread. Find us on LinkedIn at The Carbon Thread. Find us on YouTube at The Carbon Thread.
Nice.
All right, y'all.
And
Appreciate
for all those wondering, merch coming soon.
There we go. If you enjoyed this episode of the Heavy on Brand podcast, be sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification button. And if you need more information on all things marketing and branding, check us out at thecarbonthread.com. Until next time, stay heavy.